everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are doing very well today. So today's video, I'm really excited because I don't think I've ever done one of these on my channel before. Maybe I have, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm gonna just be talking about some makeup that I'm glad that I skipped. I'm obviously gonna have to put the picture on the screen for you guys, so I don't have the products to share with you, obviously, but I did just want to kind of share with you the makeup that maybe I, at first, you know, at initial maybe launch photo or release photo of the certain makeup item, maybe I wanted it right at first, but then I had a change of heart, maybe because I had similar things in my collection, or maybe I just thought it was the best idea for me to just go ahead and skip along. And by the way, all of my credit goes to Trend Mood. Trend Mood is the Instagram account that I use to just kind of keep up on the new releases for makeup and pretty much all things beauty. She sometimes releases like new skincare on there as well as just other beauty things like perfume and all of that. So I will leave a link to the Trend Mood Instagram account in my description box in case you are curious to see where I get all of these, you know, photos from, and also if you just want to stay caught up on all of the new makeup releases. So I'm going to try to go in order as you know, that they happened in. I will say I had to scroll all the way back up to January, basically to, you know, determine from the start of 2021, what did I decide to pass over. So the first thing that kind of caught my eye, and again, I'm going to put it on the screen, Milani came out with a lot of different products this year, especially at the beginning. They came out with just kind of like upgraded primers and things like that. One of the primers was actually the Peach Glass Skin Primer, and this primer actually never came to Ulta. It never came in stores to Walmart or Target or anything like that, and so this is strictly I believe a Milani website, you know, item, and that's kind of the reason why I decided to go ahead and skip over this one. I did since pick up the Milani, it's like the Supercharged Dewy Skin Primer, the one that's like in the orange tube. I love that one, and I think that it really does a good job at hydrating the skin, and so because of that one, I just don't think that I need to pick up this peach one. And even though I'm all about the glass skin look, because it's solely on Milani's website, I'm not even really interested in picking it up from there anyways. Then fast forwarding, Colourpop came out with the Disney collaboration with Lizzie McGuire. So they obviously collaborated with Disney and Lizzie McGuire, and they came out with an entire collection. Colourpop has done this with a lot of different, you know, Disney shows or princesses, things like that. They collab a lot with other, you know, companies. And as much as I loved Lizzie McGuire, as much as I, you know, really enjoyed that show as a kid, I just didn't need the eyeshadow palette. I was definitely tempted, don't get me wrong, because obviously just being a Lizzie McGuire fan, you know, I was just naturally tempted, but I'm honestly really glad that I skipped over it because the color story doesn't really appeal to me all that much, and yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's something that easily I kind of forgot about, honestly. Whenever I was looking again through the Trend Mood Instagram page, I saw this. I'm like, oh yeah, that released this year. And so I obviously, you know, don't miss it or feel like I've missed out because I forgot about it. So definitely, you know, I'm totally fine that I went ahead and passed on that. Then we have a skincare product, and this I was pretty interested in because I do have rosacea, and this is the Glow Recipe Avocado Ceramide Recovery Serum. And Glow Recipe is a pretty trendy skincare brand. They are pretty expensive. I don't think that they're probably the most expensive skincare brand at Sephora, but they're pretty up there in pricing, and they tend to be pretty well loved. And I will say there are some things that I like from them. I thought that their like banana souffle moisture cream was pretty good. I also think that their PHA toner was pretty good. But the reason that I wanted to try this was specifically because it was supposed to help with redness and just kind of like, I guess, flare-ups and things like that. But I honestly haven't heard the best reviews about this product. And there's also so many things within my skincare routine, so many products that I love to help combat my redness. So one product that I always love to include is my Paula's Choice chemical exfoliant that really helps with just evening out the, my skin tone, my complexion. But also I love just certain things like skin tone correctors, things like that, to also really help with just kind of like reducing my redness. So I feel like I have it pretty well, my skincare routine, I have it down pretty well, that I still just don't really need this. Then we have a Too Faced palette, and Too Faced is one of, I don't want to say they're one of my favorite brands, but I really enjoy their eyeshadow palettes, especially the fall eyeshadow palettes that they come out with. And I'm kind of a sucker for some of their eyeshadow palettes because I enjoy those fall ones so much. And this is the Teddy Bear palette, and this palette really did tempt me for a while there. I didn't want it right away, but then as soon as I saw people creating some really beautiful looks with it, of course I was very tempted. The reason that I ultimately decided to skip over it was because I have the Too Faced, the Natural Nudes, like Born This Way eyeshadow palette, and I feel like that's enough for me. Also, I've noticed that the eyeshadow palettes that are not in the 10 packaging, they're not always the best quality. I think that Natural Nudes palette is pretty good, but if I'm really thinking about it, I think that the eyeshadow palettes in the 10 packaging do perform better. So I'm glad that I skipped over this one. I feel like ultimately it's probably going to get discontinued or just no longer being sold at Ulta or Sephora, and I'm just gonna probably forget about it. So I'm glad that I decided not to pick that up. Another eyeshadow palette that I'm glad I skipped on is the Rare Beauty The Discovery True to Myself eyeshadow palette. And anything Rare Beauty is kind of hard for me to pass on, if I'm being honest. They are a brand that just overall really intrigues me as far as their aesthetic, just the packaging that they use for, their makeup products, and honestly just the way that they represent them or present them, I mean. And so this eyeshadow palette, I definitely thought at first glance I'm going to get this. I love Rare Beauty. I've had some good luck with some products, not all, but some products, and I'm gonna pick it up. Well, I'm glad that I didn't, because I have seen this palette obviously many times in person at Sephora, and I'm just underwhelmed. I'm underwhelmed by the swatches, I'm underwhelmed by the color story, and I honestly don't really hear people talking about this eyeshadow palette. I feel like it's a true test of it's a true test of a makeup product if it's still being spoken about even towards the end of the year. And I feel like there are some products that have come out this year, earlier in the year, that are still being talked about, but this is just not one of them. And so I'm glad that I skipped over it, even though I love Rare Beauty and I'm pretty tempted by their new releases. Another eyeshadow palette, that's one thing that's always going to be very difficult for me to pass on, are eyeshadow palettes. That's just ultimately what I'm always wanting to gravitate towards. But this is the Melt Cosmetics Mary Jane eyeshadow palette. Now, this one I cannot confidently say that I'm forever over this palette, because I may pick it up in the future because I love cool tone neutrals, and I do think that this is a really nice grungy cool toned palette that I might want to pick up in the future. But for now, I'm glad that I skipped over it. I have my Natasha Denona Glam palette. I have my Colourpop Stone Cold Fox palette. I have my Colourpop That's Taupe palette. I mean, the list goes on as far as the neutrals that I have available to me within my collection, and as far as cool tones. So I'm glad that I skipped over it. It's a pretty pricey palette as well because it is from Melt, but maybe in the future I will pick it up. But yeah, I'm glad for now that I don't have it. All right, moving on, I have some face palettes, and these are the face palette, face quads from Colourpop. So they pretty much just have blushes and highlighters in them, and as tempted as I probably was from the beginning or from the initial reveal photo of these, I'm glad that I didn't pick these up. I have, not a lot of face palettes. I definitely have, a lot to just like, like the normal makeup consumer, but for someone who maybe, who has a larger collection, I would think that my face palettes I don't have that many, but they honestly get neglected in my collection. I love them, don't get me wrong, but I feel like I tend to just gravitate towards like my single bronzers, my single blushes, my single highlighters. And so I'm just glad that I didn't pick one of these up. Also, I feel like Colourpop, they have really great like Super Shock products. So their Super Shock cheeks are really good, as well as their Super Shock shadows. I knew I'd mess up. And then also like their eyeshadow palettes are really, really good. But as far as their standard powder products, like their powder bronzer, their powder blushes, I had, pretty bad experiences with them. I wouldn't say like bad as far as like they didn't perform well, but I was just very underwhelmed by the quality of their powder products. And so that's another reason that I'm glad I just skipped over this. And again, I just feel like people are not talking about these, which means that they're, forgettable, and if I'm being honest. So I'm glad that I skipped over that. Now this is an eyeshadow palette. Already back to the eyeshadow palettes. This is an eyeshadow palette that, again, kind of similarly to the Melt palette, I might pick this up in the future, but it really just depends. This is the Sigma Ambiance palette, and I don't know what it is, but something about this palette is just so stunning. At first, I thought that it was going to be too similar to my Urban Decay Naked Honey palette, but the thing is, I do think there is enough variation between the two that I might still be able to get away with getting this Sigma palette. And honestly, if I did want to get it, I would definitely get it on sale, because Sigma has done up to like 40% off, at least that I've seen on their eyeshadow palettes, and that's definitely how I would purchase this. I have the Sigma Enchanted palette, and I don't use it that much. I seriously need to pull out that palette and use it more. I'm just not that impressed with Sigma's eyeshadow formula, and so that's kind of another reason why I'm like, maybe I shouldn't pick this one up. But I just think that maybe if I can get it for like 40% off, maybe I'll pick it up for that price. But I need to just kind of think about that more. And also, because it is a little bit of a similar color story to the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette, I don't use that palette that much, the Urban Decay one, that maybe like I don't need this palette. Do you know what I mean? So that could be a possible purchase in the future, but for now, I'm glad that I don't have it, just because I need to really be sure that I want it before I bring it in. Another eyeshadow palette. I'm so sorry that there's so many eyeshadow palettes, but this is the Malibu Barbie palette from Colourpop. So again, Colourpop, they collab a lot with other, with like different companies. They collabed with Barbie for this one, and the Malibu Barbie eyeshadow palette is so pretty. It is so pretty, and I feel like actually a lot of people really enjoyed this palette. They felt that the pops of blue were really pretty, and that they went along really well with like the theme and the color story. I heard great things about the entire collection, if I'm being honest, but the eyeshadow palette is what tempted me the most, and I think I am like finally at the point where I'm like, I am not going to purchase this palette. As much as I am tempted, as much as I like love the color story, I just don't need it. I don't need it, because if I'm literally wanting it for the pinks and the blues, then that's it. That's like literally 4 shades in the palette, and I don't need it for 4 shades. So yeah, I'm glad that I skipped over it, and I think I'm finally at a point where I'm like, okay, it is not going to happen. This Malibu Barbie palette is not coming into my collection. Another eyeshadow palette. This is the Colourpop Mega Eyeshadow Palette in Your Golden. This palette, I believe it was probably Ava 2's here on YouTube that pretty much tempted me on this palette, because the look that she created with this palette was so beautiful. And I was like, I feel like I need this palette because of that look that she created. But ultimately, looking at it, I feel like I have these shades, and it honestly isn't very unique at all. I feel like this palette was not very, well received, if I'm being honest. I hate that I say that. I always say that in my videos, if I'm being honest. So I'm sorry if I'm annoying. But yeah, to me, it doesn't look like it's anything special. I do think it's really beautiful, and I do think that Colourpop does a really, really great job at the layout of their eyeshadow palettes, meaning that the way that they have their colors laid out, they are really easy for they're easy on the eyes, if you know what I mean. So I will say I was tempted by it at first, but I'm glad that I didn't get it. And honestly, I ended up picking up the It's a Mood palette, and I've used it one time. So I just need to calm down on these mega palettes because they are so large, and because I'm not getting as much use as out of them as much as I would have wanted to. And so I just need to be careful about these and how tempted I am by them. The next palettes, or just kind of like, I guess, collection, but mainly the palette, it's Colourpop and the little like Hello Kitty collaboration that they did. They came out with like these really freaking cute eyeshadow quads. And I was specifically tempted by I think it's called like the Cocoa Cutie. It's the blue one. And I don't know why, but I'm so tempted by this palette. And maybe if I could get it on a really, really good sale, this would end up coming home with me, but I need to stay strong because I do not wear blue eyeshadow. I do not wear blue eyeshadow, and even if I'm wanting to wear it for a YouTube video, like just a film and be colorful and do something a little bit more out of my comfort zone, I feel a little bit like insecure going out in public in blue eyeshadow. I know that I shouldn't care, and most of the time I don't, but for some reason I still feel a little bit embarrassed or intimidated to go out in public with blue eyeshadow on. I can go out in purples, I can go out in pastels, but for some reason with blue I get a little bit insecure. And I feel like it's probably because with blue it kind of like counteracts like your under eye, and sometimes I feel like if you don't have your under eye nice and brightened, it can kind of make you look sickly, if you know what I mean. But anyways, I was bird walking there for a second. The Hello Kitty Colourpop like Cocoa Cutie palette is so cute, and I've never really been a fan of Hello Kitty, but I guess because she's so cute, it's easy for me to kind of fall into that trap. But I'm pretty sure I can try to stay strong, but it is a really cute palette. I'm just glad that I didn't pick it up because, again, like, I don't wear a lot of blue. This one, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to mention it or not, but it's the Colourpop and Powerpuff Girls collection. I wasn't that tempted by it, but the reason I guess I put it in here is because my cousin has this palette, and I actually, I was at her house and I actually looked at it in person, and it was so pretty in person. Like, oh my gosh, it was so pretty. But I was like, Sabrina, you weren't even the biggest fan of the Powerpuff Girls. Like, you watched the show, but that wasn't like your favorite. And on top of that, again, like, you're not, wearing those colors that much, and it has pressed glitters. Like, you don't need it, So sometimes I will, easily bring in a palette into my collection if it's collaborating with something that I love. For instance, the I Heart Revolution and Elf palette, like the Cotton Headed Ninny Muggins. Like, I knew that I would probably not use this palette that much. I knew that the color story, while it's cute, like the I Heart Revolution formula isn't the greatest, but I love the packaging and I kind of want it in my collection for like the collector in me. But Powerpuff Girls is just not enough for me to do that, if you know what I mean. Then we have a cream blush, and I am so weak to cream blushes. I feel like now, because I have so many and I have pretty much any color I could ever want, I'm a little bit stronger as far as like resisting a cream blush. But the, what is it? The Beauty Blender Bounce Liquid Whip Cream Blush, I guess that's the name. These came out back in August, and I wasn't like super tempted by them, but because it was a new cream blush, I easily just like automatically turned my head to it because that's just one of my favorite things. And so I'm glad that I didn't pick it up because I haven't heard people talking about these. And on top of that, I have so many cream blushes and I just need to get use out of those. This was a weird like thing that tempted me, but I think I know exactly why. This is the Morphe and Coca-Cola collab, but it's the Cherry Coke eyeshadow palette. Again, very weird that this tempted me, but I think the reason it tempted me was because I purchased from Morphe this year the Morphe and Maddie Ziegler palette, as well as the Morphe and Madison Beer palette. And I actually really, really love the Maddie Ziegler palette from Morphe. I think it is a really, really fun palette. And one of my favorite shimmer shades of all time is Godmom in that palette. It's just so beautiful and reflective and just like dimensional on the lids. And so I feel like because I had a great time with that palette and I was overall like pretty impressed, I felt like, oh, it's a new palette. I think the color story is cute. Maybe I need to try more from Morphe. And so it kind of did like tempt me a little bit. And then of course the packaging reminds me of some of my favorite palettes from Too Faced. But what kind of like was the deciding factor for me was I saw this palette in person at Ulta and I like picked it up. It was so cheap feeling. Like, I know that the Too Faced ones have like some weight to them, right? This felt like legit, like just like plastic. Like I could throw it and literally would all just crumble and fall to pieces. I know most eyeshadows do, but it just felt like cheap, if you know what I mean. So that was kind of the deciding factor. I'm sure the quality would have been okay. Morphe doesn't have the best eyeshadows, but I feel like it would have been okay, you know, but yeah, I'm glad I didn't pick that up because it was seriously so cheap feeling, and it was because I was impressed with that other palette that I felt like maybe I needed this one. Then we have just the overall like Colourpop Hocus Pocus Round 2 collaboration collection. And this is the, I don't know if it had like a title. I guess like the Witching Hour, I don't know. But this was just kind of underwhelming, and it was kind of annoying that Colourpop did round 2 with this because it's like, I know that they actually did like the Nightmare Before Christmas collaboration collection, whatever. So I'm glad that they did something else on top of doing round 2 with Hocus Pocus, but it's kind of like, do something else. Like I would die if they did Coraline. Like I'm crossing my fingers that they do Coraline because I would love that. Like I would probably buy a lot from the collection. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't pick anything up. And I even had so many opportunities to pick up this collection from Ulta, because in my Ulta, they had the palette, they had the Super Shocks, they had like those like, they're not liquid lipsticks, but whatever those are in the collection. And I was just like, nope, I'm gonna be strong, and I just walked away. So I'm glad that I didn't even just pick up the eyeshadow palette, because I just don't need it, you know? And I'm happy with my Gather Round Sisters Colourpop Hocus Pocus palette, so there we are. And then I have the Too Faced Christmas Coffee eyeshadow palette. So I actually did pick up the Too Faced Forbidden Fruitcake palette because I was trying to decide between the two of them. I definitely didn't, like at first I didn't want them, but then I think just kind of like getting into the Christmas spirit and kind of being a little bit more disappointed with the releases this holiday, I felt like, okay, well maybe I'll just pick up one of these palettes from Too Faced. And I don't know, as much as I think the packaging of the Christmas coffee one is simply adorable, I just don't feel like what's inside is like enough for me to want the palette, if you know what I mean. I felt like the Forbidden Fruitcake palette was just, it's just cute. Like I have it right here. I hate the packaging, right? Like I hate it. No, I don't like it, but I think the color story is really cute. Like, I don't know if I'd go as far as to say that it's unique, but I love that they put like this little duochrome in here. Sorry, I'm trying to get it so that it's not like as dark, but I love that they put like this little duochrome in here. And I don't know, I think this little palette is cute, and I felt like you could do a lot with this color story. But the color story of the Christmas Coffee palette was just, I don't know, I wasn't feeling it as much as the Forbidden Fruitcake one. So I'm just glad I skipped over that one and didn't fall into just like loving the packaging, and that's why I brought it home, if you know what I mean. Okay, and then the rest are, maybe I'm just gonna title this eyeshadow palettes that I'm glad I skipped over because a lot of these are eyeshadow palettes, I'm sorry. But this is the Huda Beauty, the Rose Quartz palette. And this is again kind of like the Mary Jane palette from Melt. I might pick this up. I don't know though. Like, I feel like Huda, again, she does a really great job with just really getting her customers like interested and like intriguing them and getting their attention, because she has really beautiful metallic shades and really beautiful formulas within her palettes. And as much as, like, I don't know, I'm still thinking about this one. I don't love that it pools pretty pink and pretty blue, because I'm looking for, well, honestly, I would want it to pool more pink than blue. And I feel like some of the looks I've seen have pooled a little bit blue. So I would have to see maybe some more looks that people are creating with this palette to ultimately make a decision. But for now, I'm glad that I didn't pick this one, especially during the VIB sale when it launched, because I instead picked up the Natasha Denona Retro palette, and I'm really enjoying that one, and I think it's really stunning. So I'm glad that I went ahead and put my attention towards that instead. And then I have this palette from Tarte, and this is the Tartelette Full Bloom eyeshadow palette. So I'm pretty sure that this is limited edition, and I cannot believe that I'm even tempted by this palette. Even still to this day, I'm tempted by this palette, and I need to shut that down, because I have the Tarte Juicy palette and I have the Tartelette in Bloom palette, and I don't use them that much. And on top of that, I'm just kind of underwhelmed by Tarte's eyeshadow formula. I need to just stop being tempted by this palette, because even though in person this palette looks beautiful and the shimmer shades look beautiful, I just need to stop being so tempted by this, because yeah, I'm just not, I need to just get over this. And not only that, it's just really a huge neutral palette, and I have these colors within my collection. So I just need to be happy there and just be done with it. And then the last product is the new Artist Couture Supreme Nudes, the Quickie palette. Now, the reason that, so at first I was like, oh, I'm gonna get this palette, like for sure, it's so pretty. But the reason that I'm not getting that palette is because I found this one from TJ Maxx. This is a Marc Jacobs palette that was never released. I don't know why, but it was never released. And it's the iconic Fine Grind eyeshadow palette. This, first off, the packaging, so beautiful. It was part of their like cafe collection that they came out with. And here is the color story. The color story is absolutely stunning. And doesn't it look very similar to the Artist Couture palette? Like, I have that color story right here in this beautiful, beautiful packaged eyeshadow palette. I love the packaging. It's way cuter than the Artist Couture one. And I only paid $20 for this. So I just need to use this one. And I feel like Marc Jacobs eyeshadow formula is better than the Artist Couture. I haven't used a Marc Jacobs eyeshadow palette in a while though, so I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, this color story is basically the same thing. So I need to not be tempted by this Artist Couture one and just use that one. But those are all of the makeup products, eyeshadow palettes that, you know, that tempted me this year. Like I said throughout the video, some of them may still come home with me just because, you know, I want to just kind of see more reviews on them, or maybe if I could get them on a good deal, they might come home with me for that as well. But overall, for the most part, I'm really happy with the decision that I made on skipping over some of these things. And I think it's also really healthy to kind of take a look back, like take a step back, look at your collection and see what you can dupe out, see what you're actually chasing within that new release, because if it's just something new, maybe pull out something from your collection that you haven't used in a while to kind of get that, hopefully that similar feeling. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, I would love for you to subscribe and be a part of my YouTube channel family here. Thank you for all of your love and support and for watching today's video, and I will go ahead and see you in my next one. Bye!